The wind howled across the open plains of Dakota Territory, carrying with it the cries of a newborn and the bitter sobs of a woman left to die. Her name was Eliza Mayfield, a girl barely 20, barefoot, her dress torn and bloodied from childbirth. They'd thrown her baby into the dirt like it was nothing but trash. The men who did it had laughed, their boots crushing the dust around her. "A bastard ain't fit for this world," one of them spat before riding off. The baby's weak cry broke through the silence, and that's when a shadow on horseback appeared from the west. The man's name was Clayton Ridge, a rancher with a reputation for two things: silence and justice. He dismounted slowly, his boots landing heavy beside the crying infant. For a long moment, he just stood there, staring at the tiny form wriggling in the dirt. Then he dropped to his knees. Without a word, Clayton took off his worn leather hat and scooped up the baby with trembling hands. The mother's breath caught. She thought he'd come to finish what the others had started, but instead, he wrapped the baby in his coat and whispered, "No one throws away what God made. Both are mine now." Eliza's eyes widened, tears mixing with the dust on her face. She tried to speak, but her lips only quivered. Clayton lifted her gently into his arms and placed her across his horse. The baby nestled against her chest. By sunset, they reached his ranch, a lonely patch of land bordered by endless prairie. It wasn't much, but it was safe. Inside, he lit a fire and warmed milk for the baby, holding the bottle with the care of a man who hadn't known tenderness in years. Clayton had lived alone since his wife, Mary, died in childbirth 5 years earlier. The graves sat behind the barn, one for her and one for the child that never took a breath. That night, as he watched Eliza and the baby sleep by the firelight, memories he'd buried deep came rushing back. When Eliza woke, she panicked. "Why did you bring us here?" she asked, clutching the baby tightly. Clayton poured her a cup of water and said softly, "Because you needed someone too, and because I once failed to save the ones who needed me." Over the following weeks, the ranch began to feel alive again. Eliza, weak at first, started helping with chores. She learned to feed the chickens, gather eggs, and rock the baby by the porch while the wind whispered through the grass. Clayton would sometimes pause his work just to watch her smile at the baby, a smile that slowly brought light back to his broken world. But word travels fast in small towns. One morning, a group of men rode in from the east, the same who had thrown the baby into the dirt. Their leader, a tall man with a cruel grin, sneered, "That woman and her brat belong to us. She's the property of Mr. Callan, sold fair and square." Clayton's jaw tightened. "No one owns her," he said. The man laughed and reached for his gun. Clayton didn't flinch. In one smooth motion, he drew his revolver and fired into the dirt between their boots. The sound echoed like thunder across the plains. "You've got 10 seconds to leave my land," he said calmly, "and I suggest you ride fast." The men hesitated, realizing this wasn't a fight they'd win. They spat curses and turned their horses, disappearing into the distance. Eliza collapsed to her knees, trembling. Clayton placed his hand on her shoulder and whispered, "You're safe now. They'll never touch you or the baby again." That night, when the baby began to cry, Clayton walked into the room and gently took the child from her arms. "You need rest," he said. She watched him rock the baby to sleep, humming a soft tune she'd never heard before. Months passed, and the bond between the three grew deeper. Eliza had found strength again, and Clayton had found something he thought he'd lost forever: family. The townspeople whispered about the rancher and the mysterious woman, some saying he'd gone mad, others saying he'd found redemption. Then, one evening, as the sun bled red over the horizon, Eliza looked at him and said softly, "You could have left us there." "Why didn't you?" Clayton stared at the baby in her arms. "Because the moment I saw that child, I remembered what it felt like to lose one. I wasn't going to lose another." Tears filled her eyes. "You saved both of us." He smiled faintly. No, Eliza, you saved me. Years later, the small ranch thrived again. Green pastures, a rebuilt barn, laughter echoing through the fields. The baby, named Samuel, grew up calling Clayton P.A., and every morning, as the sun rose over the plains, Clayton would look at Eliza, the woman once left to die, and thank heaven he'd been there that day, because sometimes, the people the world throws away are the ones meant to heal you. And the rancher, who once lived alone, finally understood. Family isn't always born, sometimes it's found. In the dust, in the pain, and in the quiet promise of a man who says, "Both are mine now." The morning sun rose over Ridge Ranch, casting a golden light across the fields where the wheat danced in the wind. It had been 2 years since Clayton Ridge picked up the baby from the dirt and called both mother and child his own. The ranch had changed. Laughter now echoed across the land, and where once there was silence, there was now life. Eliza stood on the porch, her hair tied back, humming a soft tune while little Samuel played with a wooden horse that Clayton had carved by hand. The rancher stepped out of the barn, wiping sweat from his brow, his rough hands covered in dust. When his eyes met Eliza's, a small smile tugged at his lips, something rare for a man who'd once forgotten how to smile at all. But peace on the frontier was never promised. That afternoon, as the wind shifted, a stranger rode in. He wore a black coat and had eyes as cold as stone. His name was Marshal Tillman, the lawman of Clearwater Town, 40 miles east. He dismounted and tipped his hat politely. "Afternoon," he said. "I'm looking for a woman named Eliza Mayfield." Clayton's shoulders stiffened. "Why?" The marshal unfolded a paper. It was a warrant, Eliza's name scrawled across it in bold letters. "She's wanted for desertion and theft," he said flatly. "She was sold by her husband to a landowner named Callan, ran away with his horse and property." Eliza's face went pale. She clutched Samuel close, trembling. "That man Callan hurt me," she whispered. "He bought me from my father and said I was his wife. But he beat me. I ran the first chance I got." The marshal's jaw clenched, but duty weighed heavier than sympathy. "Ma'am, the law doesn't care much for reasons. I'm here to bring you in." Before Eliza could speak, Clayton stepped between them. His voice was calm but cold. "She's not going anywhere. Not while I'm alive." The marshal looked him in the eye. "Are you really gonna stand in the way of the law, Ridge?" Clayton didn't blink. "I already buried one wife, Marshal. I won't bury another soul the law forgot to protect." The standoff lasted a long, tense minute. Then Tillman sighed. "You've got 3 days. Bring her in yourself, and maybe the judge will show mercy. If not," he tipped his hat again, "I'll be back with men." After the marshal rode away, the silence was heavy. Eliza dropped to her knees, crying. "I can't go back," she said. "If they take me, he'll kill me." Clayton knelt beside her. "You're not going anywhere," he said softly. "We'll find another way." That night, after Eliza and Samuel fell asleep, Clayton sat by the fire, his revolver resting on the table. He stared at the flames, lost in thought. He'd spent years building peace out of the ashes of his pain, and now it was all about to be torn away. He made a decision, one that could cost him everything. The next morning, he saddled his horse and rode out alone toward Clearwater. The journey took him through old trails lined with dry brush and whispers of danger. He arrived at the town courthouse by noon. Inside sat Judge Perkins, a man with a reputation for being crueler than any outlaw. Clayton walked straight to him. "I came to talk about Eliza Mayfield." The judge looked up from his papers, smirking. "Ah, the runaway. Callan's been complaining about her for months. Claims she stole his mare and some gold." "She didn't steal anything," Clayton said, voice steady. "She escaped." The judge's grin widened.